Welcome to the Bold Analysis. This is the leading informative political podcast in Kenya. I have followed keenly the conversation about the presidential term limit. And I think yesterday I was the first analyst that did that analysis immediately when I read it from The Nation. And I decided just to take time and go behind and find out what exactly is happening. For better part of yesterday, there is a narrative that was actually brought forward to counter the claims, and Azimio wing and a host of Kenyans really seems to have taken that narrative. And that is one narrative that I want to debunk. This narrative is that the position of the issue of the term limit was a personal position of the Fafi MP. Because I listened to, is it Majority Whip, Silvanus Sosoro? He made a statement. I also listened to Owen Baya, I think he was in NTV. And the UDA seems to have brought in their position that does not reflect the position of the party, neither of President William Samoei Ruto. Now, I want you to listen to this clip. What exactly happened? Then, from this clip, I will draw for you observations that really behind my position, debunking that counter narrative.
Yangu ni machache kabisa ya kwamba tumefurahia serikali ya Ruto vile amegawa mabiti, ni kila region, kila community imewakilishwa katika hizo mabiti zote, na kuna sera nyingi ambazo anataka kufanya. Hatutaki tufanye makosa tuliyofanya wakati wa Mwai Kibaki. Tulimtoa yeye kazi kabla hajamaliza program zake. Aliacha kiti kwa ajili ya constitution ya 2 terms. Mimi na wabunge wenzangu tuko na mjadala inaendelea saa hizi. Na mjadala yenyewe na tunataka kuambia Wakenya ya kwamba mambo ya 2 terms haiwezi kutukosha sisi. Tunataka mjadala yenyewe ikuwe ya umri. Mtu akifikisha 75 ndio hawezi contest. Kabla hiyo anaweza contest. So tunaambia mjadala ama terms ama requirement of constitution ya presidency ikuwe ni umri ya mtu ambaye anagombania kiti, na umri yenyewe ikuwe 75, sio term 2, term 3, term 4. Kwa vile mainchi ambazo zimeendelea kama German, Mikel alikuwa pale miaka karibu 20, Australia hapo pale 2013, Norway hapo alikuwa pale miaka 4. Kila mtu miaka 5, 6, 7, 8. Jana tuliona rais wa Sri Lanka ambaye anatoka kwa kiti ambapo kusoni shida anatafuta muda yake wa 5.
Ladies and gentlemen, when Fafi MP, if you listen to that clip, it is not accidental speech. It is not an impromptu speech. It is not a personal decision, a personal position. What I have gathered is that the same event he was speaking, it was an event of donation of relief food, and that relief food was from the national government. That's where I want us to get the bearing. It was from the national government. So not that he was in an event that himself he had organized, or maybe by the CDF money, because initially we were talking about the relief food, and then we were like, who has released the relief food? Then he wasn't the only speaker. From one of the persons who is a subscriber here and happened to had attended the meeting because it was in Garissa, he's actually saying that he made that speech. It was a long speech. Not that hiyo ndio kitu aliamka kusema. It was a long speech, and he spoke for close to around 10 minutes. And that became part of what he was holding. In fact, he was seated there, and he was not the only speaker. There were other speakers that also gave, and I was like, now what was happening? Each and other speakers were speaking about things that are happening, especially on the matters of the drought, and also urging the people to support the government of the day. That is what was the tone of that meeting. That he was talking about urging people to support the government of the day. If you listen to Fafi, he's saying that he's been having a meeting with other leaders, which is not mentioned. If it was an impromptu speech, you would have mentioned of other leaders. Why do you think he mentioned he was with other leaders? What is the truth here? And unless we lose the plot, unless we lose this, if Azimio will sit comfortably and say that that does not reflect the position of UDA, or now that does not reflect the mind of William Ruto, that's where you lose the plot. And you will actually not get the message that was intended. The message by Fafi MP was well calculated, it was well planned, and it had its own objectives. It was not an impromptu. He's not speaking his mind, he's speaking the mind of William Samoei Ruto. The earlier you accept that, the better. And if you want to know this, he's been talking, he was saying that they've been talking with other MPs. Maybe this will be in the Northern Frontier, or maybe other UDA leaders. And the conversation, and there is another clip, I think he was being interviewed somewhere around Parliament buildings, if I'm not wrong. And he's talked passionately about rewarding competence. And it should not be about term limits, it should be about Ruto's delivery. And you know, when he's talking, when you listen to the Fafi MP speaking, he's talking about what Ruto has done. He's praising Ruto all through. And I see Osoro saying just sycophant. He's praising Ruto all through. And it is just another narrative to create a sort of Mtukufu rais. You know? In fact, it's telling, you know, a situation where you worship, creating a culture of worship where you say, Mtukufu rais, tutakana yeye hadi mwisho. You know, that's the kind of fanatical support. I agree with some Azimio leaders who say that he's speaking like more of a fanatic. It is not really that, but that is what William Ruto wants. That fanatical aspect. So that you will not be questioned. We are going to be with you here for long. And I wanted to get this. There is another clip of him saying that this is a conversation that talks about constitution. I got that and I was like, yes, that was the intention. Listen to this here.
Those statements, first I want to make it clear, it's not a party stance. It has nothing to do with the current president. It has nothing to do with the government. It has nothing to do with anybody else other than Kenyans. This is a debate which will come, and will continue to come. It's a debate about the constitution. And the constitution, as you know, is not a biblical version of the Bible or the Quran. The constitution can be changed, can be amended, and will be amended, whether by our generation or the generation to come. And amendments start from an outburst or a sentiment by one or two people. And that's why I brought up this issue of the term limit. It's something I believe in. It's something we discussed with quite some number of legislators. It has nothing to do with UDA, it has nothing to do with ODM or any other person. It has something to do with Kenyans. And those of us who are discussing it were Kenyans, MPs, and even the locals. I believe in that sentiment. I said that the term limit should not be 2 terms, and the person should be removed through the ballot, not by term. If it goes to that level, then it should be something to do with age limit.
I can make a very good conclusion from that. That MP was speaking on behalf of what they've been speaking in the closed committee, on behalf of those UDA MPs and what they've been discussing. That is not an impromptu speech. I maintain on that, and I wish we get it. I've seen Azimio saying, you know, I listened to my good MP Lilian Gogo. I think the Rango MP saying in NTV saying that when Ruto comes back, Ruto will be very angry at the MP. No, Ruto sent that MP to deliver that message. And I think this is the coded message that was intended. It must have been packaged as a presidential term limit debate, But Ruto is simply telling Azimio, come on table, I am ready, we amend the constitution. The people who are sitting and talking about presidential term limits, they know very well, we have shortage of fools, the way Ruto used to say. And people are very clever. They know very well that when you talk about a presidential term limit, the constitution is very rigid, that such must get to referendum. And on the other side of Raila Odinga team, they have also been speaking of election reforms. Some of those election reforms might need a referendum. And what is happening is this. I think Kenya Kwanza are already laying their demands on table that if you bring a conversation here about constitution and electoral reforms, and maybe they have realized, because in the next 100 days there have been a conversation that Azimio is going to be activated and they will be agitating for the election reforms and unmet pledges. So what Ruto is simply saying is this, that this time round I will be ready for a constitutional review. That is what he's saying. That is a difference from a position that held that, we cannot change the constitution, it had not been implemented fully, which is, I also agree that it had not been implemented fully. We needed to implement it, but again, it's not a rigid document. It's a document that was meant for this country. So if Kenyans feel they can edit some few words here and there, nothing stops them. So this is the message to Raila Odinga, Martha Karua, and Kalonzo Musyoka. Come, let's sit on the table, let's amend the constitution. And that's what they're saying. So when they push constitutional review process, someone will say, okay, mnataka tubadilishe, basi hata tutoe term limit, ikuwe on edges. That is it. And with that, Kenyans will comfortably reject that move. Number two, I listened to that MP speaking, and not even MP, I listened to Sosion, the former NATSG, in Citizen saying, William Ruto is going to serve 2 terms. Then after 2 terms, he's going to exit the office. That is the conversation. Already, the framers of this narrative, they envisioned a situation, or rather they envisioned a goal, an objective, to talk to Kenyans, rather to tell Kenyans to envision William Ruto's presidency as 2 terms, not 1 term. The truth of the matter here is that we have a transition in 2027. Whether it will be still from William Ruto transition, William Ruto 1 transition to William Ruto 2, there is a transition. Whether it will be from a William Ruto to another president, there will be a transition. So what is happening is, already there is a narrative that has started crippling in that, the Azimio will push Ruto to become one-term president. I know many people are saying that Ruto is not a pushover. But if democracy is to prevail, it's not an impossibility. So what the framers are actually saying is they should look at Ruto's 2 terms. That is what I listened to saying, that Ruto will have 2 terms. That's not it. But then, are we testing the loyalty level? Someone is testing with such a conversation. What is the loyalty level? There is the church. I've not heard their voice on this. There is the church, there are the civil societies, there is the opposition, there is the members of parliament, there is the Northern Front, and there is different sectors of this country, demographics. So this could also be floated by intelligence to test what is the loyalty of people to government. Now, it's just two months, barely 2 months in office. Nothing much can be seen. But they just want to test what is the perception of people about this government, or what is the popularity of the president. It could be a high intelligence strategy that was just thrown. They see how people react. After some time, then they do their survey and know what exactly is happening. It could have deep input in it. Ruto has started 2027 campaign so early. This is a message to Azimio. If you want to wrestle the presidency from Ruto, if you're still talking about whether this MP was sent or no, you're simply sleeping. What is happening here is the 2027 campaign has kicked off. Just the way it kicked off in 2017 after former President Uhuru Kenyatta was sworn in. William Ruto has known very well that there is, and it's not his problem, there is a very big difference between campaign message and what can be delivered, reality. With the reality that some of those things cannot be done, not because they were said. I've always said that there is no problem that pledges cannot be met. It happens from different regimes to the other. The only challenge was rigidity in messaging. That you give people a lot of hope. That was the only problem. The lie in the campaign, because that has become our culture. I can tell Azimio, William Ruto is campaigning for 2027. Kalonzo Musyoka, Martha Karua. If you guys are in line to stage a contest with William Ruto, you should start campaigning. That is it. You know, it was a food donation, and after just saying what government has done, you're saying Mtukufu Rais, we want to change. It's not about the age. It's not about the term limit. It's about the age. That is what is in stake. And it's a very good bait. Azimio, Raila anaweza vai so hii kitu to support. It's interesting, but let me tell you, I just want to repeat this. The conversation about term limit is not about the presidency alone. Even the governors are in it. And that's why it's a bait. Even the governors are in it. They also want to serve more than one term, more than 2 terms, especially based on merit. But the Kenyan voter is so aware. His awareness is so high. So I support what Bobi Wine is saying, that stand up and defend the constitution before the constitution becomes so weak to defend you. That's my bold.